Greetings, Commanders, and welcome on in to a very special stream that we've got for you this evening. It's the first time we're trying this. This is a narrative roundtable stream, and basically the idea is we're gonna just talk, chill out and talk a bit about Elite Dangerous. So I'm Zach, one of the community managers here on Elite. I'm also joined by Bruce, another community manager here on Elite Dangerous, and we've obviously, as you can see, got some three very, very esteemed guests with us today, which we'll get to in just a second. So, hello, everybody in the chat. Welcome on in. Good to see you all. We've got Heather. We've got Aknatenra. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing probably not. We've got John Thomason on YouTube. Hello, hello. Osric Guru. Hello, hello. Okay, so let's get started then, shall we? Let's not beat around the bush, I guess. That's a phrase, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a phrase.
Let's talk about our guests then. So the idea of today's stream is we're just I'm going to play a bit of Elite Dangerous in the background, do a bit of exploration. But the most part of the stream, we're just going to be talking about the story. So if you're one of those people that are interested in the Elite Dangerous story or the lore, this should be a pretty fun stream for you because we've got three very knowledgeable guests who are very, very passionate about the lore, and we're hoping for some pretty interesting debate/discussion that is going to unfold both with you, chat, and with our guests. So we're looking forward to it. So first of all, in the bottom left of your screen at the minute, we've got Mr. Grinning Crow. How are you doing today, mate?
Great. How are you doing? Thank you for having me on.
That's all right. I guess, can you give the chat a bit of a quick rundown about yourself, your channel, what you typically do with Elite Dangerous?
Yeah, sure. I'm Grinning Crow. I have been streaming for a little over a year and a half, and I've been playing Elite since the beginning of 2020. Fell in love with puzzles and Elite and the lore, and that's basically what I do most of the time on stream. I try to experience the stories live with the audience. I give fresh interactions, fresh impressions of those. Have a discussion with the stream in regards to like, what do they see? What do I see? What are my thoughts on things? Yep. People come in and ask questions about various pieces of the lore, and I try to highlight that or show people what to look for.
Yeah, nice. I see some people in chat already saying that the tinfoil hat is going to come out because Grinning Crow is here with us. I'm pretty sure you've got that ready to go.
This is how you know that I'm talking absolutely nonsense. But
nice. And we've also got in the bottom right of your screen, we've got Psykit. Hello, Psykit. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Excited for this. Same question then, Psykit. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, your stream, what you like doing in Elite Dangerous?
I really like faffing about in space.
Nice.
Predominantly. I was very, very relatively late in comparison probably to Malik and Crow. I've been streaming for about 2 years now, but I was very, very late to the lore and all of the story driven stuff. Kind of maybe about a year or so ago, I was like, oh, there needs to I wonder if there's any more depth to Elite, and discovered this vast treasure trove of things and information and insights and generationships and all of that good stuff. And I just really, my favorite streams are the ones where we can discover things together and stuff like Hyford's Cache and things like that. Just going through that together, it's just really cool, and I really enjoy it.
Nice. Well, you're perfect for this stream then, because that's the sort of thing we will be talking about. Okay, and finally, right in the middle of your screens, we've got Malik. Malik Via, how you doing, Malik?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Not bad, not bad. I'm excited. So, Malik, same question applies. Tell us a bit about yourself, your channel, why you like Elite Dangerous, what you get up to.
I started Elite back when it was still in beta, 2014. So I kind of got it because it was initially, it's like, oh, I want to play this game in virtual reality, right?
Yep.
So at the time, it was like the only space game that had VR support, and I jumped into it. And I just remember getting into that Sidewinder, leaving Coriolis space dock, and just open up planet below you, and I've pretty much lived in Elite since.
Nice.
I'm retired Air Force, got out in 2013, and this is pretty much what I do full time now. I stream on Twitch, Malik_VR, and pretty much I do like science and research and xenoscience pretty much. I'm just like following the Thargoids and Guardians and just all the stuff that's going on. Like we do a lot of things on my channel where we go over Galnet like with a fine-tooth comb. We find, hey, this story that was mentioned 3 years ago mentioned this person, and now here we are 3 years later, and this person's mentioned again, and then suddenly you interconnect these things, and it just unravels a big web and everything like that. So that's the kind of stuff that we do on my channel.
Nice. Chat, if you are interested in checking out some of our guests, if you're on Twitch, !guests in the chat will give you a link to each of the channels. If you're on YouTube, you can see the Twitch channels on each of our guests a little lower third. So, and obviously not forgetting our guest in the top right of the screen, it's Mr. Bruce Garrido, Community Manager. Same question to you, Bruce. Who are you? What do you do? What do you like about Elite Dangerous?
Hello, Zach. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here as one of your esteemed 4 guests. No, yeah, I'm obviously one of the community managers on Elite Dangerous. Also, I don't know how to follow up from that. I like all sorts of things about Elite Dangerous, but let's not talk about me. Let's talk about lore and, well, the 3 experts that we have with us. Let's not delay too much in getting into it, because we were sort of talking before the stream and all sort of unanimously agreed that we could end up talking about any of the given topics for more than the full hour. So it may be the case that we have to invite people back on for a future session. So yeah, best not delay.
Nice. So with that in mind, Bruce, should we kick off? What should we kick off with? And chat, well, before we get going, feel free to ask your questions as we go, and our guests will pick things out from chat they might want to answer or talk about. We're basically just gonna pick a topic, and then we're gonna talk about it and see where it ends up. And maybe in the background I'll play some Elite Dangerous, do a bit of exploration or sightseeing. So yeah, Bruce, anything that you want to begin with, or anyone? Let's get on with it.
Sure. Yeah, I suppose we should just get the ball rolling, really. We haven't got like a very set list of. We've got some topics that we'd like to touch on, but this is going to be very much a free-flowing conversation. Chat, feel free to drop questions in at any time, and for any of our guests, if you see a question that you would like to read out or address, or is directed at you specifically, feel free to just reply as you would. And yeah, let's get into it. So perhaps a sensible place to start is the setting of Elite Dangerous itself. So you boot up the game for the very first time, which for some of us was a while back, let's say. Hour 0 on Steam or wherever you play. So it's 3307. Well, it wasn't 3307 for all of us when we started, but it's 330X. And what is the setting? I suppose let's talk about the superpowers. Maybe that makes sense to start with. So these are the major factions in Elite Dangerous, and sort of the cornerstone of the politics and the events which happen. Let's start with Psykit. Out of the 3 main superpowers, well, what's your take on the superpowers generally, and do you align with any of them in particular?
No, I not really. I consider, as far as the superpowers are concerned, I would consider myself a bystander, someone who is not particularly interested in politics in general, but I enjoy seeing shenanigans. Like seeing factions leaving the Federation is very pleasing to me. Seeing lots of different groups beginning to split away is very interesting, and makes me very excited for the future of the superpowers and whether there might be a 4th at some point. I would consider myself fully independent.
An independent pilot. Okay. Do you find them all just too nefarious to want to support then?
A little bit. I'm not super bothered about.
See, I know that Grinning Crow has got some very strong feelings, particularly about one of the superpowers. So we'll get to you in a second, Crow. Malik, what are your thoughts on the old superpowers?
So for me, my real last name is Duval. So instantly I became interested in the Empire because the leaders of the Empire are the Duvals. And because of that, the way that I role play my character in the game is they grew up in the Empire. So usually whenever there's any community goal going on or anything like that, I sit there and I ask myself, okay, how would my commander deal with, say, this community goal with the Federation is fighting someone? Because I'm a Imperial, I have to go against the Federation, right? So I kind of do some of my community goal stuff in ways like that.
Mm-hmm.
Other times, because again, my commander is the scientists, they're the ones researching the aliens and stuff like that too. As an example, I was a little bit disappointed in the community overall because what I'm trying to remember what the phrase is. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result every time is the definition of insanity, right? The fact that everyone did the community goal for Edmund Mahan in the Alliance when they could have done something for Kane. Why did everybody do the same thing? I kind of wish that people tried to mix it up a little bit and throw a wrench in the works and see, what happens in the game. Kind of like, shake things up a bit,
Mm-hmm.
Not only does God play dice, but the dice are loaded. That's how the narrative works in Elite, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, Grinning
What are
Crow.
your, I was going to say, yeah, what are your thoughts then,
Go on.
Crow?
Oh, let's see. Many. I like Malik, I do a little bit of role play inside of Elite. My commander, Paul Ward, is an independent pilot, but I am a disciple of the Sim Guru Pranavantal, so I'm a utopian. This kind of aligns with a lot of my values outside of game. I work in open source projects. I'm a big fan of making technology readily available or making information readily available to people. So I play an archivist inside of Elite, finding the stories, making those stories available, teaching people how to look for those things. I personally think that all of the superpowers are kind of awful. But if I had to rank them, the Alliance is the least awful, and the Federation is directly responsible for all of our problems and woes in 3307. Which is really frustrating because I know that the Federation is modeled after the US. I live across the pond in North America. And so it kind of hits home where I'm like, that's rough. But that is definitely a very American thing that would have happened.
So go on. What is the problem with the Federation? Let's delve into some of the detail.
Well, let's see. Let's talk about the most recent thing with the anti-terrorism activations that they've done, where they are monitoring literally everything that goes through the communication networks. This massive invasion of privacy, or the whole we're all about freedom and democracy, except if you want to do narcotics or any of these things that don't actually harm people, or we would like to specifically persecute cultural groups. Like the Marlinists. It's just, there's also, and I'm still working on this, I'm still tying all the pieces together, but I've got some pretty solid leads. I'm not quite ready to discuss, but I'm pretty sure that they're directly responsible for the whole antagonism from the Thargoids.
Ooh, okay.
There's
what is
my
the reason?
spicy one.
Are you not going to give us the reasoning now? That's being saved, is it?
It is. We can talk about it a little bit, getting into Black Flight.
Give us a brief overview. Give us a brief overview. Maybe put the hat on. The tinfoil hat might need to come out here.
Oh yeah, here. Let me get the hat out. I already see the hat emotes flowing through chat. So Black Flight, as their most recent narrative has kind of opened up more stuff in regards to that, which, thank you, by the way, that's been driving me nuts for over a year now. And I can only imagine other commanders who have had to deal with it for the last several years, waiting for this story to move forward. Was operating out of a ship called the Overlook. The Overlook is a ship that belongs to a group called the PRE, the Pleiades Resource Exporters, I think is the name. And the PRE is a faction associated with the Federation. So Federation, through the PRE, managing the Overlook, which was operating Black Flight. Black Flight's active mission was suppressing information into the research and discovery of Thargoids post the First Thargoid War, which we're learning more stuff about now with the new narrative that is coming out. Mm-hmm. You can track further pieces back aside from that, And those are the pieces that I'm not quite ready to discuss because I'm trying. One of the things that I try to do is I try to get very definitive sources.
Right. Okay. Psykit, Malik, any comment on that? Do you disagree?
I
Do
know
you
Malik's
agree
got
with
comments.
We'll let Psychic go first.
Because
again, if I say something, I'm going to be going on a rant in a moment.
I've listened to Crow say this. This isn't the first time that I've heard Crow say this. This isn't the first conversation that we've had along these lines. And like every time you say stuff to me like that, the more things that come out in game, specifically the more recent like Hyford's Cash stuff, all of that coming around in the way that it did, and all of the information, the massive information dump that we got on that date, has completely put me into agreement with you. I can't help it.
It's hard, right?
It's really difficult to disagree with you, mate. I'm so sorry. But I agree. What's your opinion, Malik?
Okay, so here we go. My big thing is that I've tried to take a step back, look at it from a different point of view, and if you sit there and you chronologically place every single event that humans and Thargoids have had, okay, that in the entire history, from the moment the Adamastor and them came across the stuff until now, there has never been a single point where the Thargoids have ever attacked humanity first. They have always reacted to something humans did to them to begin with. Like the humans did something first, and then the Thargoids react in every single point in the history between humans and Thargoids. And it's just one of those things, like when you really take a step back, and I'm talking about like there's events that happened 150 years ago in the game that today we're still feeling the effects of that initial event, right? Yeah, I mean, like like I said, this is one of those subjects that when I go into my rant on my channel, I can sit there and talk about the subject for like 2-3 hours at a time. What I'm
hearing is that he's not.
We go into detail. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's only the Federation's fault. Like I don't know exactly.
Oh no, I'm not saying in any way that like the Federation is only responsible for it, but they are definitely the root cause.
I mean, there's Federation, Empire, the old Galcop, the INRA. Now we have Aegis. The Alliance. There's all this stuff going on. I mean, an example, like something that like I've been wondering for years, the Alliance, like in the Pleiades, we had the Federation and Empire fighting over systems in the Pleiades, right? Had all the barnacles there. They had the capital ships hovering over the barnacles for years. That entire time, the Alliance is doing their own thing out in California Nebula, right? They now have a series of truck stop stations going out that way. They're all Alliance controlled, and they've been out there for years just doing God knows what, So it's one of those things like you say that the Alliance is like the most trustworthy. I don't trust them. Like I don't know what they're doing.
That they're all bad, but
yeah, they all have
possibly the least bad.
Yeah.
However, you bring up a really good point with like the meta alloy barnacle thing, because like all barnacle mining operations are now in Alliance controlled systems. What does the Alliance need that much meta alloy for? Because it's not stations.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a theory, and I think it's anti-Xeno capital ships. Like that's my crazy theory.
Awesome. I've always wondered what's her name in Desiat? Farseer. What is she doing with all the meta alloys that people have been bringing her? Like
she does do a lot of stuff with frameshift drives, and there's those sneaking rumors that the modern frameshift technology is based on stolen Thargoid technology from the first Thargoid war.
Yeah, that was one of the INRA logs about the whole hyperdrive development and it turning the test pilot inside out and stuff like that.
Yeah, Almeida landing.
And see, like that's the kind of thing. That's kind of how we know. I mean, that lore is kind of what explains why, for example, we can't jump straight to Hutton Orbital, right? Because the way that the hyperdrive works is that the INRA tests, they created a wormhole, the ship goes into hyperspace, they create an exit wormhole, and they tried to exit. And during that exit phase, the pilot turns inside out, right? So the way humanity made a thing to work is that we lock onto the biggest gravitational force in the next system. We enter hyperspace, but we then have the gravitational thing that we lock onto. That's what pulls us out safely instead of turning us inside out, you know? So that's I find that kind of stuff where you take those logs and that explains like in-game mechanics, right? That explains why we can't do a micro jump to Proxima Centauri, because that's not the heaviest object in the system. You can't lock onto it, right? So, I mean, just like that's the kind of stuff that like I find kind of cool as all these new like logs come out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Psykit, what do you think about frameshift arrow technology?
What
to
do I
bring you back
think
into the conversation.
Mate, I'm just listening to you guys going. You're such
come on.
nerds.
Please
I'm
jump
going-
in. Please jump in.
It's great. It's great just to listen to you. I'm agreeing with what you're saying in every capacity. It's I feel exactly the same with you. That what are the meta-alloys being taken for, if not Thargoid human hybrid technology, that kind of thing. Is that the missing point? Is that the thing that we've been waiting on seeing? Is that where we're gonna see another Orthrus in the future, or things along those lines? You know, those little dots on the Orthrus, is that your indication of meta-alloy
those like meta-alloy control points,
exactly.
Right? Thargoid hybrid, yeah, that would be interesting.
You'll notice that all the way through this, people in chat are already saying that this is the quietest they've ever seen myself and Bruce on a stream. They also said it's quite refreshing, which is, I don't know whether to take that as an insult or not, but either way, that's fine. But that is exactly what we want, chat. The idea here was to we were going to get these three on stream, and we're just going to talk. That was it. So it's all going swimmingly.
Fantastic. And thank you all for this opportunity. These are two people that I get to talk to Psykit all the time, and sometimes on stream together.
Hey.
But Malik is definitely somebody I've wanted to sit down and riff back and forth with about lore. So this is quite fun.
I'm just enjoying you guys doing it at the moment as well. It's great.
If I may, then I would like to throw a sort of live grenade into the conversation, especially to wind Malik up. So we talked about the Alliance gathering meta-alloys. And they were doing that again shortly after the Adamastor showed up on Halloween last year in the Coalsack Nebula, right? And that appears to have sparked a series of Thargoid attacks in that area. I know you said the Thargoids haven't attacked people as the initiators, but wouldn't you consider that sort of an aggression as such?
So with this, this is a thing that I repeat on my stream a lot. I think there are 7 rules that you have to follow when dealing with a Thargoid interceptor. So those 7 rules are: if you're carrying Thargoid technology and they ask you to drop it, drop it. If you're carrying Guardian technology and they ask you to drop it, drop it. Do not pick something up that they've already claimed, scanned and started to pick up. Do not ram them, do not shoot them, do not invade their personal space. And the last thing is, do not kick the dog. So the last one is the one that tends to be the one that needs the most explanation. What I mean by this is usually for people that take care of their animals, they might be inside their house, right? They open the door, they let the dog go out into the yard, do its business, right? If they know, hey, the dog is normally a nice, quiet dog, and they suddenly hear this dog barking up a storm, okay? They go outside and they will see, say, their dog face to face with a snake, right? The majority of people will go out there, and it does not matter if the dog attacked the snake first or if the snake attacked the dog first. They will come to the dog's aid, right? The reason why I bring that up now is that now let's kind of change the meaning of this now. Instead of humans in their house, we have a Thargoid interceptor in hyperspace, okay? Out and about, you have the dog, the Thargoid scout, okay? And then you have a snake an anaconda, an asp, a python, whatever, right? Sometimes it can be a bird, it can be a vulture, it can be an eagle, it can be a dolphin, whatever. What it is that the scout and the human ship, they got into a conflict, okay? The interceptor always jumps in out of hyperspace after the fact, right? So they come out and they're like, hey, there's our other Thargoid, and they're in conflict, okay? They don't know, did the scout attack first? Did the human attack first? They don't care. They're brethren, Thargoids. They come to the scout's aid, right? But I mean, that's the thing. Those are my 7 rules for things that will piss off a Thargoid. I want to clarify, Thargoid interceptor. The whole thing with the Thargoid scouts, my belief is that 150, 160 years ago, when Jameson fired that mycoid missile at the hive ship, okay? The way we understand Thargoids is that Thargoids are hive minds, right? So when that mycoid missile hit that hive ship, do you really think that queen's last thought was, oh, this sucks, we might as well quit? Or do you think their last thought was, avenge me, my children, right? So even 150 years later, the scouts that are still out and about, they're still doing the last command that queen ever gave. A real world example of something that happened is that after World War II, there were actually Japanese soldiers left on islands in the middle of the Pacific, and several of them were finally relieved in the 1970s, just as like a real world example of what's going on. The only difference is in Elite, because we're dealing with genetic hive minds, that queen's dead. There's no more commander to tell those scouts to stop. So whatever these new interceptors coming in and their new queen, they have no way to tell them to stop. All they see is the scouts are attacking things and they just join in. They don't have any way to communicate with them because just no hive mind.
I would like to pick apart this a little bit.
Same, but later you go.
By all means, like, if you want to go first,
No, for you both. Thanks. Okay.
So I like it. It's a really compelling theory. There are a few points where I don't think that it holds up. The first is that we continue to see scouts outside of the Pleiades, which is the Pleiades would have been the area of activity around the time of the first Thargoid War. We see them, they started showing up in Colsack, they started showing up in Witchhead, and they're still operating under these instructions. If they're only operating under these instructions, then why are they showing up in other places as these places are activated? Like something is calling them there or something is directing them. The other one would be that I don't believe that the Thargoids are hive mind in the I have direct control over you. I think that they're more aligned with the hive mind in the same that you would see an ant colony or a beehive. And I know chat's about to go crazy about Thargoids or space bees. And I feel like that one is best reinforced through what we used to call Thargoid surface sites. I believe Frontier started to refer them to as Thargoid imprints, the relay stations that you find in the Pleiades that are pointing to areas that Thargoids attack. So I feel like that itself indicates that there's some kind of relay network, that there's something providing direction, but that Thargoids themselves, or the pilots of the interceptors and drones themselves, are capable of independent response. The last one would be that with the most recent logs, and this is a bit of a spoiler for anybody who hasn't gotten into Project Seraph, they were using a Thargoid ship and interfacing with it, but it predates human interaction with interceptors, because interceptors didn't start showing up until the second Thargoid War, the one that we're currently in. So it had to have been a drone. If it was a drone and it was operating under these assumptions, then how are they able to separate it, right? How are they able to subdue it so that they could put this technology into it? It would just go berserk and kill it. So I don't know that actually tracks. It's a really interesting theory, but I think that there's a decent body of evidence to say that it may operate differently. Also, there's logistics. We've been fighting scouts for a while now. Like, there's no way there are just that many scouts in existence unless they're continuing to be reproduced.
Now, I'm going off of the logs that the Thargoids that the INRA has in the codex, the knowledge base. They talk about how there's princesses, which are just queens that haven't.
Oh,
given birth
I'm
to
not
all its
invalidating
drones,
any of the knowledge
all
base
that kind
there,
of thing.
but
So, yeah.
like there are hive minds. There are real world hive minds, bees and ants being great examples of that aren't direct hive minds, right? They are a hive mentality.
I don't know. I don't think that Earth-based insects are actually considered a hive mind, because like ants and bees, they release pheromones and the things just do things off of those pheromones.
Right. And
rather
the
than
knowledge-based
in
logs
elite,
say
they're
that
supposed to be like communicating across interstellar distances, telling them what to do, kind of hive mind.
Right, which is what I'm saying that the Thargoid imprints exist for. It is
Right.
likely that we have other Thargoid imprints around and just haven't uncovered them yet, which I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some more in the future. But in the knowledge base, it even talks about how Thargoids communicate using, I forget the exact phrasing, but it's basically like electromagnetic impulse near telepathy. Right. But you could send messages. You could still, even then in that case, like it's not going to cross galactic distances quickly. There's got to be some kind of relay network. And the end node, interceptor, scout, Thargoid on foot still has to be able to interpret that and still operate independently without that input. So that's my thought on it.
Psykit?
What Crow said. But sorry, there's one other thing that I wanted to bring up with regard to sort of like the what I call my favorite tinfoil theory of all time, which Crow has definitely heard. But the Adamastor, when they picked up the Thargoid, the bit of Thargoid technology, and they took it away in the ship, and everybody went mental. And the people were acting strange on the back of the Thargoid technology. The electronics were acting strange. I think on the Adamastor, not the Adamastor, but the base logs, the doctor whose name escapes me now, but the woman who was in charge said that she'd never seen her crew acting like this. How do you guys feel about the and like the Hyphen's Cash stuff also showing D2, showing sympathy, showing that she is being emotionally affected by Thargoid technology? How do you guys feel about the nature of Thargoid technology and how it might affect human behavior?
I have a long one about like Thargoid probes. Malik,
Because I think
we already know that the sensors, probes, links, they if you have them in an unshielded cargo bay, your ship slowly dissolves. The lore behind those is that the probe sensor link is literally taking its surrounding environment to repair itself, which explains the malfunctions on the Adamastor and stuff like that. That's why now we have the corrosion-resistant cargo racks. You can sit there and carry as many of those things in there and it won't damage it, because apparently the meta alloy that it's made out of has some kind of reaction to keep it from, using all of the material surrounding it to repair itself.
That's an interesting idea. I always just kind of took it as since Thargoids use ammonia-based chemistry instead of the H2O-based chemistry that we use, they were kind of fundamentally incompatible. Now, we do know that like Thargoids and sensors and links all have particularly interesting properties, and the return storyline, the abandoned bases or the attack settlements, depending on how you look at it, all kind of tell the story on the power of probes. And we know that probes are capable of doing a bunch of different stuff. If you honk at them, they'll knock your systems out when you run into them in space. But in those storylines, they talk about how it puts out a tremendous amount of electromagnetic interference, and it was turning off systems, things like that, both in the Cooler and Curiosity Killed the Cat storylines. And then you have the whole cult of the Far God, I forget which actual storyline that is in the Return, but they have this strange temple with a strange object in it that's causing them to, do crazy things. It's a well-known and documented phenomenon that high amounts of electromagnetic interference will cause personality shifts, including things like paranoia and delusions, which also explains kind of what was going on with the Adamastor on its return, where it had what we likely believe is a Thargoid probe on the way back, which was causing the crew to go to insane as it was pinging out and trying to pull a ship to it. That's my thought on it.
Now, you bringing up the attacked ground settlements in the Pleiades, the thing I want to try to stress about that is that when you go out there and you collect all the stories for all those things, every single one of those is a story told from the human point of view, right? So sure. Of all those stories, if you sit there and you go through each one, every single one, the human did something to the Thargoid for the Thargoid to react and attack the structure. Like they're like, you've got oh god, I can't remember his name. He does he does the elite streaming or whatever, and he attacked them. So of course story. He was the one. Yeah, the bug killer. Then you've got the one where they're creating agricultural products. And for those that don't know the history of agricultural products and humans and Thargoids, the mycoid virus started off as a fungus that was trying to be developed into an agricultural product, and it was then weaponized to kill the Thargoid. So probably to a Thargoid, it looked like the human was making the mycoid virus version 2, and they had to react to it. If you go to the one where they found the probe, I think it was a probe underground, well, they had the probe. The human had the probe. They came to recover it and, you know, that kind of stuff. Like every single one of those stories, if you listen to the story, but then take a step back and go, okay, that's what was happening from the human point of view. And then sit there and say, okay, what was the Thargoid seeing from that? Like what happened to have the Thargoid react to that one? You had the military one. They attacked the Thargoid first. They followed the military ship back to the base. I mean, like every single one of them has did something to the Thargoid first, and then the Thargoids reacted to it. I like the one titled Mercy. That one was really interesting because apparently ship Mercy's came in, it had encountered. Yeah, it had encountered a Thargoid interceptor. It made it to the thing. The Thargoid then attacked the base because it was probably coming after the ship that it was going after. But then the people were running to the hangar, and it let them go. And it's like, that's like when everyone's like, oh, the Thargoids are evil and they just kill whenever. Then explain that. Like things like that don't make sense to me. And it's like trying to take a step back and what was the Thargoid seeing at that point, you know?
So a lot of the time when I talk about the stories, at least on my stream, I try to talk about them in like narrative and narrative design perspectives on top of the lore. So storylines, the way it seems that Elite writes storylines is to highlight a thing, right? So you have the Black Flight storyline, which introduced Thargoid imprints. You have the abandoned settlements or attacked settlements, depending on your thought, that really kind of introduced the power of these unknown devices, which we later figured out were Thargoid devices. Like these storylines show us things and allude to a greater story. Like that's all part of the return. Thargoids then started showing up, and we started getting hyperdicted. We go into the Second Thargoid War. Same thing with like INRA. The INRA storyline is kind of our introduction to like, hey, Thargoids are still a thing because, you know, canon in Elite is different from canon outside of Elite. And so that talks about the first Thargoid War, what happened, all of those things, and kind of leads up to, hey, Thargoids are here. We didn't kill them off. We just made them really, really mad and they left. But they're going to come back, right? The Saravasti storyline, one of my favorites, by the way, as far as like storytelling, is like such a great setup for the return. Because it's talking about how, you know, humanity is forgetting about them. All of these crazy new technologies are starting to show up and they look like technologies that they've seen from Thargoids. Like it just kind of, you know, gives you goosebumps when you start looking at that story and thinking about where it took the narrative.
There's a few people in the chat raising a decent point when they talk about Thargoid, I guess, mindset, in the fact that they are aliens. So is it potentially that we just don't understand, we can't comprehend their actions and why they make these choices?
I think it's...
See, like... Go ahead.
I think it is a narrative-based thing to assume that it is human nature that we would want to go and attack these Thargoids so that they're not in our way. There's no denying of that. I'm also going to say it's a really fun mechanic. I highly enjoy doing it. Whether it is the right thing to do is a completely separate question. But it is a really fun mechanic to go and fight a Thargoid. It takes a lot to do, but there's within any story, aliens bad, let's go kill them. So there's quite a lot of and again, because it's a good mechanic, that's where it falls. It's not necessarily for me, the best thing about Elite Dangerous and about the Elite Dangerous, like a lot of the narrative is that there is no black and white, it is gray areas.
Yep.
So and it gives us this opportunity to have these amazing conversations and delve further into different people's opinion. I don't really think that there is a wrong decision to be made, which is why we all should be independent pilots and not follow anyone who tells us what to do.
It's almost like choosing sides is a bad option.
Yeah,
There's a
exactly.
author, and I cannot remember his name or their name right now, but like the best quote on writing aliens. The way that you make good aliens alien is that you understand that they're alien, right? That their thought expression, the way that they do things is completely different from human motivations. And so you don't really have to explain anything. They just do things because they're aliens, right? And that's kind of, I feel like what's going on with Thargoids is we can try to ascribe, human anthropomorphic motivations to them responding to threats, because seems to be a universal thing, but it may not be, right? Like it is a giant question mark. For the record, I think that Malik is actually right, and the Thargoids are really, really mad at us, and we could possibly have had a peaceful interaction. I also think that the time, based on the Guardian logs, the time for peace is long past.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you.
Narratively, the story was rigged for it to go this way from the get-go.
So my thing, another thing that I've said multiple times, I feel like a lot of people jump into Elite Dangerous expecting it to be like Independence Day. They jump in, it's an action-packed thing, shoot some stuff up, things explode, that kind of thing. I feel that the story of Elite is more like Arrival, where it's one of those movies that you kind of have to watch it a couple times before you really understand like what's going on, and you really have to like back up and be like, whoa, that's what's happening. Personally, I felt that when the Thargoids were introduced as a ships flying around kind of stuff, this is January 2017, Frontier literally gave us 9 months of hyperdictions of the Thargoids, 150 light years from Merope. Merope is the very center of the sphere of their space down in the Pleiades. We had the hyperdictions there. And again, a lot of people think of an interdiction as being a hostile thing. Well, again, they're an alien. We're invading their space, right? They're stopping to check us out, right? But for 9 months, that's all they did. They pulled us out of hyperspace. They scanned our ship. They flew away. After 9 months, that's when we got, I believe, the 2.4 update. And that's when Frontier gave us the AX weapons for the first time. And at that point, then players were able to finally kill them, right? So I feel when the Thargoids were introduced, I almost feel that there were 2 hidden community goals that started at that point. And so far, as people keep killing them, we start off, we had the Cyclops, we had the Barnacles, right? As people killed them, boom, we unlocked the Basilisk. Kept killing them, unlocked the Medusa. Kept killing them, the Scouts show up. Kept killing them, Scout variants show up. And then finally, we're at the point where the Hydra's out, right? And people still killing them. We don't know what's coming next. Is it going to be the Orthros? Are we going to actually see that in the live game? No idea. The other community goal that I feel is happening is we need to give the Thargoids their stuff back. And I feel that people have been doing that. I mean, I at one point loaded up my, cutter? My cutter full of meta alloys, and for like 30 minutes just dropped 10 meta alloys at a time and had 2 Thargoid ships just slowly picking them up. So that was like 500 and something meta alloys alone in that one trip. But I feel that as people give them their stuff back, we unlock things on that side. And I felt that when we hit the first tier of that, that was when we unlocked the whole Thargoid coming down to the barnacle and spinning around and picking stuff up from it. Like, the attacking the Thargoid's hidden community goal, I feel, yes, you get money from the Pilots Federation, you get elite rank for every kill you do and everything like that. But the other one, we gain knowledge. And I know a lot of people are like, but money, where's my credits? You know, like, as we give them their stuff back, we're learning more about the Thargoids. When I felt like we hit the second hidden tier of the return their stuff to them one, that was when we got all the attacked ground site things. And again, that's where I talk about how human point of view, Thargoid point of view, right?
I'd like to interject here, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I like this idea, and it is definitely pre my time. Like I said, I didn't start playing until 2020. I will use this throwaway line: correlation is not causation, right? We cannot always say that because X is true and we also see Y that they are linked. But the point that I really want to interject is I did an interview on narrative and narrative design with Arth a few months ago, and I actually talked to him specifically, and I pre-warned him, much the same way you all pre-warned here the talking points. I pre-warned him that this is a question that I was going to ask about the option for Thargoid peace. And the answer that I got, Arth, as cryptic as ever, was if peace was an option, it would require a massive mechanical change to elite, which kind of tells me that wasn't the planned path, or that the mechanics do not currently exist for a peaceful action with the Thargoids. And I feel like because narratively hostility has always been initiated by a non-player source, that is true, right? Like, Thargoids are meant to be our antagonists from a narrative perspective, but we are still the bad guys. Like, that's the story in Elite, is we are always some shade of black.
I would agree with you.
I'm actually seeing. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
My thing with you saying like giving Thargoids everything back and they quite happily slap everything up. Why do they this is going to sound like nonsense and like a very silly, funny, jovial moment, but why do they eat escape pods?
Fire in the sky.
Okay, so with this, my personal feeling is, at this point, I'm going to talk a little bit about the whole Thargod cult. The Thargod cult worships the Thargoids, and this is one thing that I've noticed a lot with a lot of things that Frontier does with its storylines, is that they will use very specific terminology. And the term that they use with the Thargod worshippers was, the Thargoids are the... Oh, shoot, now I can't remember the word now. I needed that word. What was that word? The Thargoids are the harbingers of the Thargod, okay? And when you look up the definition of harbinger, it is they come in advance of, okay? It doesn't mean that they're bringing the Thargod. It's just they show up first, right? Same thing like when we had the interstellar initiatives. The second one, I believe, was called the Enclave, right? The term the Enclave is an area surrounded by a culture, a completely different culture, which the Enclave was in the Witch Head Nebula, which is completely surrounded by the Col 70 sector, which supposedly is full of Thargoids. So Frontier really, like, you really have to pay attention to a lot of the wording that they use. Now, talking about them picking up the escape pods, what I feel is that David Braben, many years ago, I mean, you can still find it on YouTube, he sat there and said, there are things out there that even the Thargoids fear. And I feel that the thing the Thargoids are afraid of is the Guardian AI. That is the only thing that they've like ever been beat by in the past. And I feel that Frontier, like everything that Frontier has been adding to the game is, in my opinion, I think the Guardian AI is coming, and the Guardian AI is the Thargod that they're expecting to show up. The fact that we're getting fleet carriers, I almost have a feeling we're going to get to a point, for those that have seen the Battlestar Galactica reboot, we're going to be running from something. Like all those mechanics that they've been adding, like I feel that that's what they're setting things up for, personally.
I conceptually like the idea of burning the bubble, right? Which is what you're talking about.
Just one more thing. Going back to the escape pods, they're picking them up to take them somewhere safe. Same reason why that attacked prison. They attacked prison. They know that something's coming, and they're picking them up and taking them somewhere else.
I don't think that tracks.
I don't think
it's an interesting idea, but I don't think
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's a super tinfoily idea, and I appreciate it. But for given everything that we've seen, also everything that we know mechanically that the game is capable of, the idea that Thargoids are like, oh yeah, no mate, we're just going to rescue these people, and they're not going, yeah, crunchy on the outside, smooth on the inside, is but bonkers to me.
Going to the burn the bubble idea, right? Which I've heard a few people suggest, and I narratively I love it. Battlestar Galactica is a great series, and it's an interesting narrative. I don't think from a game design perspective it works though, right? That is a game design perspective that is aimed at existing players, right? So you're talking about people who have to make a 7 billion credit investment to get this thing running, plus tritium, which we all know tritium mining is abominable. So I don't think that like running across the galaxy is a viable storyline or a viable.
But see, with that I think with that, that's a good reason why Colonia exists. Because if the bubble burns, we have another location that new players can spawn at.
Oh yeah, but
they would have to create. I was going to say they would have to create a nubula, right? Like a new newbie bubble out in Colonia. But it's a huge fundamental change to the game, and I very, very rarely have ever seen established games make that kind of change. It would be interesting, Frontier, if you're doing it. I mean, like that's a bold choice, but
I'm sorry to do this, but I'm gonna reference another game. I think Frontier are pulling a Vault Tech and doing like a crazy social experiment with what's going on in Elite right now. That's what I almost feel is kind of happening.
Oh no!
And I think I need to get my own. I need to get my own tinfoil hat. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna put my host hat on. I'm looking at the time. We've probably got about, if we push it, we've got about 10-15 minutes left. And I know that you all wanted to talk, at least briefly at this point about the current stuff, the Salvation, the Azimuth storyline. So I guess Psykit, we'll quickly kick off with yourself on that front. Give us your initial thoughts. What are you thinking about Salvation and this whole situation?
We had Arf on Lave the other week, and I said that Salvation was really sanctimonious and came across as really sanctimonious, and now I think that Salvation is probably my gut feeling is that Salvation is D2. For those who have seen that, I know you disagree with me, Crow. Don't start with me, but my opinion is that Salvation is D2, and that's where that connection is going to make. I think we see a hell of a lot of like quasi biblical references, and within the game, and I think that's wonderful because you can make a lot of connections, and also with other gods and those kind of things, like the Greek god references and like mythology. It's beautiful, but everything that I can see points towards D2. For me, my opinion is that D2 is Salvation, and I'm desperate to know who the witch is.
Yes. Yes.
Crow?
I'll let the host pull out who goes.
Crow, I mean, carry on. Have you got anything to add?
So I disagree. And Psykit, if I talked on this on my stream and her stream about it, I disagree with D2 being Salvation. I actually think that D2 might be Jasmina Halsey, because the timeline is kind of close. But I actually think that's there's a theory going around that Salvation might be an AI, and some people are like, it's the Guardian AI, but I don't think it's that either. It'd be interesting. I actually think that Salvation is the witch. I think that what Salvation is trying to do is get rid of Aegis, especially considering some of the revelations about what Aegis has actually been working on lately, in favor of getting Azimuth and Blackflight back in the mix to finish their ultimate project, which was to gather everything out of Thargoid technology and wipe the Thargoids out. With the revelation that Aegis had at one point been really, really focused on communications technology, trying to communicate with the Thargoids, and like Ramta and his human to Guardian to Thargoid dictionary, because the Guardians had figured out Thargoid communication. I really think that Salvation is the witch, and I think that Salvation is actually for Malik's proposed and a worse option than Aegis.
Malik, do you want to round us off with your thoughts on the Salvation situation?
My thing with Salvation is that again, another thing that I do on my stream is I have this program that I use. It's a mind mapping program that allows me to draw lines. I end up looking, Pepe Sylvia and all that kind of stuff. I don't feel that right now we have enough information about Salvation to kind of gravitate towards one thing or another. I mean, there's a lot of possible theories, but we don't have anything that like.
What's your personal theory, though, Malik?
It is.
What do you think? What do you think? If you were to make a guess right now, not based on the information.
I'm pretty sure that Salvation is somebody that already exists in Galnet and someone that we've seen. When we talk about the witch, I'm getting really, really suspicious recently about Torval and her mining stuff. Like that is like, it really makes me wonder, because Torval is, she used to raise a fit with the blue-haired one. I can't remember her name now.
Aisling?
Aisling, that's it. Keep mixing those two up. She raised a fit years and years ago when the game was new, along all the social stuff. But I have a feeling she is involved in a lot more things than people think she's involved in. And the fact that there's been so much Galnet stuff recently about her and this joining this mining consortium thing going on. It's like mining, and usually the mining things pick up Thargoid stuff, and it's like it's really, really suspicious in my eyes. But again, like I said, I don't feel that there's a thing to really pin down who Salvation is yet. Like, give me a couple more weeks and ask me that question again. But right now, as it stands, I don't know. That's the thing. It's like it's just so open-ended. It could be anybody.
I agree. It could be, but it's fun to be like, it's this person.
I really
right?
like speculation.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
I agree, though, that Torval is super, super shady.
Salvation is Arthur.
Salvation is Arthur.
You say that, but on Lave, I said, is it a self-insertion? And he was like, yeah, well, kind of. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a lot, but he was kind of.
I mean, that's one theory.
So,
is it another CM?
A bit more then?
Yeah.
Between Salvation and Aegis, then, who are clearly not fans of each other, competing for information, resources, and that sort of thing. What are people's takes on whether either side or both or neither have humanity's sort of best interests at heart? What do we think?
Circling back to what we were saying before about the way that you all write stories, the answer is no, neither of them do. But it's varying shades of like, how much do they not have humanity's interests at heart, right?
I mean, they have their own interests at heart first, and then everyone else comes second. And sometimes that just kind of throws everybody in the ditch.
I think I don't think I agree with both of you that it ain't good, whichever way you look at it. But I think my an RP opinion would be, well, Aegis have had their chance to do everything, and they've just lost a bloody mothership. So let's give this new And I'm going to say woman. Let's give this new woman a shot, this Salvation woman, and see what she says. And I don't think that Salvation is AI because she is too pretentious to be AI.
Now
It has too much
going back to your
personality.
whole theory thing, though, the whole theory thing, we talk about D2 a lot. She was the first one to fly the ship and all that kind
And
of stuff.
be emotional and stuff, yeah.
We know from the logs that they got up at least into the V's, the vector, right? Or Victor, sorry. However, isn't it interesting that all the codes that they gave all those individuals that were in Project Seraph, A1 through A10, B1 through whatever, all the way up to Victor, right? But now we have this individual that was in a prison, Theta 7. Like, did they go past Victor, and did they get past Z and into the
That's actually
Alpha, Beta?
explained in the Blackslate logs, right? When they ingest people, they said that they don't give them names; they give them numbers and groups, and that Theta 7 was part of Theta group, and it was
I find that interesting that they're using the same ID style, though.
It definitely is
a little bit odd.
The thing that I actually found really interesting with the Project Seraph logs was up until D, they give pronouns, and it's all he. D is she.
No. They gave they.
No, it was he. And then afterwards,
are you absolutely sure? I could have sworn it was pronouns. They on. It was. I thought it was they on everything except D2. D2 was the only one where they gave she. I thought
we pointed it out live when I went through it. So I'm pretty sure it's he, but I'll go back and double check. I'll follow.
I think
I'll have to double check that too. I could have. Yeah, I'll have to double check that as well.
There's a known trope within sort of like emotional manipulation in turning something into a girl or a female character to make them seem weak and make the audience or whoever is reading that gravitate more towards them and want to support them. It's done absolutely appallingly in I Am Legend, and I hate it for it, but there are tropes like that, so it's a possibility.
There's a long-standing rumor, and it goes back to the Kickstarter days, that a dev made an offhanded comment that all Thargoids are female, right? And so my thought has always been that that is a nod back to that original statement. And so, like, the only reason that it worked for D is because they were wired the right way.
Yeah, I don't know why. I could have sworn that the text stated they on everything.
I will go back and double check it myself as well.
All right, yeah. Like I said, I'll have to do that as well, because I'm like, I could have sworn. I don't know. You're making me question myself. Oh no, so.
But D2 was the first time that it was a woman, right?
D2 was the first time that it specifically said she.
There we go.
Right.
That's the part that we can both agree on.
We got an agreement, Chad. We got an agreement.
That's a perfect way to bring our first installment of this to a close. Then an agreement. I mean, it's been an hour. I feel like it's gone by in about 10 minutes. So we've got so much more on our list, chat, that we wanted to talk about. So, and I've seen a few of you in the chat say potentially that we could do a part 2 or continue to do this as a series. Obviously, I don't know about everybody else that's here and everyone in chat. What are your thoughts on that? Should we continue this kind of thing moving forward? Let us know what you think.
Yeah, you gave us almost 3 pages worth of topics to talk about, and we went through like 5 lines.
Yeah.
So there's a bit more to go through here.
And we were really like surface level with everything. We could have gotten much deeper.
Nice. Cool. Thank you, obviously, to our guests for joining us. We've got Malik VR, we've got Grinning Crow, and Psykit. If you put ! Guests in the chat, you will get the links to their channels. Highly recommend checking them out, especially if you're into your lore and you want to learn more about it. Bruce, you can find on Elite Dangerous streams every Tuesday and Thursday, alongside me. Bruce, any thoughts on today's activity? We've been pretty much silent. It's been great.
Yes, so
I've been seeing you all smirk like crazy.
Right? We've enjoyed listening to the theorizing in particular. I've seen a lot of comments mentioning how quiet we've been, but no, it's actually been a pleasure to hear our 3 lovely guests discuss ideas and bounce off each other for the hour. So yeah, I'd be very keen to have them all again.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Would love to do it again.
Nice. That's good. So in that case, we shall see you all. What day is it? Thursday. We'll see you on Tuesday next week for another stream at usual time, I believe. We'll please stick around while we try and find somebody to raid, and of course, please be friendly and nice to those people. And yeah, we'll see you next week. So until then, 07 Commanders.
07 everyone.